Hello again, and how are we all? So, a couple of weeks ago, we got an announcement that the Meg movie had been picked up by Warner Brothers. And for a while, things have been relatively quiet. There were some rumours flying around, but since then, we have finally got some more things to talk about. Now, this, like I said, this started off as a rumour about who was going to be attached to the project as a director. Of course, people had their own ideas of who it could potentially have been. Unfortunately, I can't remember any of them off the top of my head. I do apologise. But we have had confirmation that the person who's going to be directing Meg, supposedly, is Eli Roth. So what does this potentially mean now that he has been attached to the Meg movie as director? Well, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not overly familiar with a lot of stuff he's done outside of Hostel, its sequel Hostel 2, and that one part he played in Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds. But one thing, at least I've got from my interpretation of seeing Hostel, is he tends to favour two things above everything else: characterization and atmospheric focus. Now, this plays to the strengths of the story in Meg, because a lot of it is a lot wrapped around the characters and the situation in which they're in. And considering what he usually brings to the table as far as direction goes, I think that this is possibly one of the better decisions, at least I think at this early point. Now, I just want to can't stress this enough. Now, I don't mean to get anyone's hopes up, but we've been at this particular juncture before. Now, for those of you who are just coming... Well, if you're basically new to the Meg series and the development hell that the movie's been through for the past 20 years or so, you'll know that about 7 years ago, New Line were in this particular situation we see now. It was taken up by them. We had a director signed, can't remember the name of him for the life of me, and that is basically as far as it went. It never went towards production, but I do have some good news. Now, while I was recording this, I got the newsletter for this month from Steve. Ironic, like I said, as I was recording, I'm just going to pop that up on screen for you so you can have a little read, and if you can't see it, I'll do it passage by passage for you. So basically, this is what it says. Dear readers, for those of you who missed the unofficial announcements, Meg is moving into production at Warner Brothers. Although an official release date has not been announced, expect a movie in the summer of 2017. That's right, people, you heard it here first. Now, with this new information that you've just seen, and we know that it's going into production, Meg heads, rejoice! However, this does bring up another question, one that has been on my mind ever since this was first announced. And that is who the cast is going to potentially be. Of course, people have made guesses. For example, some think that Jonas Taylor should be played by Keanu Reeves. As much as I liked him in the first Matrix movie, nope. But I just want to take this opportunity to highlight a user on YouTube who made a comment on my previous video when this was initially announced, and he's done his own list. The user in question goes by the name Chester5434, and his ideas on who would make a good cast are as follows. Apologies if I butcher some names, I'll put some pictures up in the corner so you know who I'm talking about. Corey Stroll as Jonas Taylor, Max Mertani as James McMacready's. Of course, people will more than likely recognise him as Herc Hansen from Pacific Rim. Emily Browning as Terry Tanaka, Richard Burgi as Frank Heller, Diego Luna as Alfonso DeMarco, Kate Bosworth as Maggie Taylor, Diego Kakerhoff as Bud Harris, Temura Morrison as Leon Barr, Kim Coates as David Adeshek, Brian Haley as Richard Danielson, B. Vang as DJ Tanaka, Ken Watanabe as Masao Tanaka, and Oliver Rapurdine as Andre Dupont. Interesting how a couple actually line up with my own potential cast, which I'll get to in just a minute. Overall, I have to confess, Chester's list is a good one. Now, like I mentioned a couple of seconds ago, there are some that are in my own list that I've been compiling ever since this announcement was public, that the Meg movie had been picked up by Universal. It was just one of those thoughts that was going around in this big old melon of mine. But before I get onto my list, I just want to tell all of you that it's incomplete at this point, and some of the bigger roles do not have anyone attached yet. So I'm going to give you a rundown of who I've got so far, and it goes like this. Now, first up, I just want to say I've got no one for Jonas Taylor, but we move on to the next one in my list, Terry Tanaka. Now, I've put two people down for this one, and that's Devon Atoki and Sophie Oda, purely based on appearance. Okay, next up for my potential casting is Scarlett Johansson, Charles Theron, and Adriana Pidlick, I think that last one is. And these are all in the running to be my ideal Maggie Taylor. Next up is Bud Harris. Now, I picked Brad Pitt alone for this role, simply because of that photo you're seeing now. I just go on the description of the characters for my list. A bit shallow, but that's just me. For David Adeshek, I have not got anybody. Now, interestingly, for Masao Tanaka, I do have... Oh, what was that guy's name who played Odd Job? To me, he would have been the perfect Masao Tanaka. I'll have his name up in a second. I haven't got anyone for James McCready's. I do have someone for DJ Tanaka, and that is John Elvis Lara, interestingly enough. For Frank Heller, I've got William Dafoe. Now, some people are probably going to slay me in the comments for this one. The main reason why I picked him for Frank Heller is purely based on his performance as Norman Osborn in the Spider-Man movie by Sam Raimi. To me, his portrayal of the character suggested that darker side and that all-consuming anger, which Frank Heller does get later on. I'm not going to tell you why. But to me, he just kind of fits the character so perfectly, and plus he has that kind of look to him. Like he's old, and he's kind of battered and worn down, which in a way Frank Heller kind of is. Okay, next I've got Alphonse DeMarco. Now, I've got two people for this role. One is Nathan Jones, and the other is Jason Mamba. Now, I would go a bit more with Jason Mamba because he has that kind of big... I picked these two because they have big presence visually. Now, Nathan Jones has been in a fair couple of films, if I remember rightly. He was in... recently in Mad Max Fury Road as Regus Erectus, that big guy with the gun. The other reason is because of the character he played in, I believe it was Warrior King with Tony Jaa. Brilliant in that. Jason Mamba, for the exact same reason, for his role as Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones, and more recently his appointment as Aquaman for the Justice League movie. Right, for Leon Barr, I've got nobody. For Dennis Heller, I've got nobody. Now, for Richard Danielson, I completely agree with Chester that it should be Brian Haley for this one. He just has that look that suggests nautical commander. Now, for Commander Brian McGovern, I've got Kevin Spacey. If you have any questions as to why I picked Kevin Spacey, of all people, just go watch House of Cards. And that should pretty much answer your question. And for Andre Dupont, I do have Oliver Rabading, or I butchered that last name completely. Same as Chester's list as Andre Dupont. That's mainly because I don't know many French actors outside of Jean somebody who played Philippe in the '98 Godzilla movie. That's literally all I know in terms of French actors. I do apologise. Now, the last two are an interesting pick because they had been kind of absolved from Chester's list altogether, and that is the two scientists who, from, I think it's from Jamstack, if I remember right, who examined the Meg. That comes up first, and that is Dr. Tsukamoto and Dr. Simidu. Now, I'm glad Chester mentioned Ken Watanabe, because he is my ideal pick for Dr. Tsukamoto. And for Dr. Simidu, I have BD Wong, who people are going to know recently as Henry Wu from Jurassic World and originally from Jurassic Park. So that's a basic breakdown of my ideal cast for the Meg movie so far. I will do an update to this video if I manage to find any other names to add to the list, but that should pretty much cover my thoughts on the casting. So that should cover my ideas about the movie as well as all the information that is currently available. Now, keeping things Meg related, I want to highlight something here. Something else that was highlighted in the new newsletter, and Meg Night Stalkers could potentially be the last in the Meg books. But Steve says right here, Night Stalkers picks up where Meg, Hell's Aquarium, left off. Bella and Lizzie, the dormant Megalodon siblings from Angel's Last Brood, have escaped the Tanaka Institute to inhabit the Saltish Sea in British Columbia. While Jonas and his friend Mac attempt to recapture or kill the sisters, Jonas's son David embarks on his own adventure, motivated by revenge. Having witnessed his girlfriend's gruesome death, David has joined the Dubai's Prince's ocean expedition in tracking the 100-ton Liplorodon that has escaped from the Prudencia Sea. Now, could there be a Meg 6? At first, Steve says that no, Night Stalkers was going to be the last one in the series, but now he's mulling over something special. We'll just have to wait and see next summer with the sales of this book. So that potentially means we could get yet another book in the series depending on the sales of Night Stalkers. And speaking of books, alright, just one last thing to round off the video. Now, following the announcement of the Meg movie, sales of the special edition of the first book have skyrocketed since then, and this is the first time that this book has been in print since '97 when the original was released. Now, 5,000 of these babies were printed, each one numbered. These limited special editions contain the first book, Meg Origins, and Meg Rewritten. There's less than 1,000 copies of this remaining, so if you want to get yours, get to Steve's website or go to Rebel Press and order your copy right now before they're gone, because these are now in heavy demand, people, in heavy demand. Right, that should cover all things Meg related for a good long time now. I just want to leave off by saying, if you have any thoughts regarding the Meg movie, leave a comment with your thoughts and opinions. I would love to read them. Or you could tweet me at MikeyMitch24. Or go to my Facebook page and message me there. Right, that should be everything. I just want to say thank you very much for watching and stay tuned to my channel for any new information regarding this. Right, until next time. See ya!